It's January, and that means the ski gear is in full rotation. Jackets, snow pants, gloves, helmets, goggles, and somehow someone always loses something. That's why I use Mabel's labels. These waterproof, weatherproof, stick-to-anything labels are a total game changer. From ski boots to snack containers, we label everything before it heads to the mountain. Because let's be honest, when the gear all starts to look the same, labels save the day. Keep your gear out of the lost and found. Label it with Mabel's. Because moms on the mountain know if it's not labeled, it's as good as gone. Use code SKIMOMS for 15% off at mabelslabels.com. Some exclusions apply. Code is not valid on sale items or stamps. Welcome back to the Ski Moms podcast. It's season 5 and we're hitting the slopes. We're sharing real, unfiltered stories of motherhood on the snow. From conquering the bunny hill with toddlers to squeezing in your own powder days, this season celebrates every type of ski mom. Thanks for joining us. We've got a great season lined up, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. The Ski Moms are so excited to talk to Annie Fast today. She is a writer based out of Oregon. She covers snowboarding and free skiing. An article that she wrote for Ski Area Management caught my attention. And as a freelancer, she is always covering what is new and trending in the industry and really thinks of important things that maybe are beyond the top of the surface. You can find out more about her writing at anniefast.contently.com. We are so excited to have her today. We're going to be talking about childcare. We're going to be talking about the Olympics. And we're going to be talking about things that can help move the needle to get more families out on snow. So welcome, Annie.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So we'd love an origin story. That's usually where we start. It sounds like, did you go right to snowboarding as a kid or what was your journey?
No, I grew up in an Air Force family. We kind of lived all over. My mom actually was the first skier in our family. She's from Helena, Montana, grew up skiing there, taught my dad how to ski. And then we just grew up skiing with my family, a lot of skiing in Europe when we were stationed in Germany. Then we moved back to Northern Virginia, and that's when I started snowboarding. And I actually don't know what year it was, but it was pretty early. It was in the late 80s. I was probably, 14 or something. It was pretty early days of snowboarding. The first time I saw a snowboard, we were on a family trip to Jackson Hole, where part of my family lives, and I saw a snowboard go under the chairlift, and I was like, oh yeah. I took a lesson at Grand Targhee and never skied again.
I do remember like the first times seeing snowboarding, and it was like so wild to see compared to what it looked like to ski. But tell us also a little bit about, what skiing looks like for you right now. Are you always like traveling all over, or do you have a home mountain where you are?
Yeah, I live in Bend, Oregon, which is right next to Mount Bachelor, and it's a big snowboard resort. My former resort was Big Sky, Montana, and Bridger Bowl. That's where I went to college. And then I lived in California working at Transworld Snowboarding Magazine for about 10 or 12 years. So I was traveling a lot when I was at the magazine, and now I don't love traveling that much. So I try to stay home. I try to ride a Mount Bachelor and just kind of hit the powder days and do a little bit of travel. Depends on what assignments I have, but it's not my favorite thing anymore, but I still enjoy it when it pops up.
Yeah, it has to be a pretty good offer. I feel the same way when people are pitching me. And I can only get Sarah on maybe one trip a year, so it's got to be really good to get her out of her comfort zone of the places she already knows and loves. Tell us about your career path. We would love to know, did you go right into writing, or did you do some other things before you ended up as a journalist?
Yeah, so I was in Bozeman, Montana. I graduated from college. I was pursuing a professional snowboarding career. It was going pretty well. I was working at the camps at Mount Hood. But I think once I graduated from college, I realized that snowboarding wasn't enough. Like I needed something else to, keep my brain going. And I actually picked up work pretty quick from the snowboard magazines back then. I got a regular column and I got a paycheck, 300 words, and it was, $150, which was, a couple of waitressing shifts in Montana back then. So once I figured out I could make that pretty much covered rent back in Bozeman at that time. So it took off pretty quick. I think I did freelance for about 2 years, and then I got hired at Transworld and moved down to California and worked in-house at the magazine that whole time.
And let's pick a few of your most recent, some of your favorite articles.
Anymore, I'm writing a lot about Olympics, leading into the Winter Olympics here. But one of my last articles that caught your attention was a ski area management one about childcare. And I guess I could tell you how that started off. Obviously, we moved to Oregon when my son was born a few months after we moved here. And I had just started full-time freelancing. Yeah, my husband travels. He's a cinematographer with Burton and Red Bull, so he's on the road. So when we need childcare, it's kind of up to me to figure out how to cover it. And so I was starting to do a little bit of work with a resort covering some events. And I was finding that I could use their childcare up at Mount Bachelor, leave my son there, go judge a snowboard event or cover, one of their snowboard events. And that was the first time I used it. And then Burton hired me to go out to the Burton US Open at Vail. And my husband was also working at that. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And figured out that they had the Small World Daycare up at Vail, which was right at Golden Peak, which was right, here's the the lift, here's the competition venue, and then right adjacent to the lift is the childcare. So it was just this amazing experience for me. We did it for about 3 years, and we would have breakfast together, and then we would drop them off or go check out the resort or the venue, do a little competition check and then bring them back over. And I'd ride the chairlift over it and see them back playing in the snow. And it was just so amazing and so comfortable for me to work and know that he was taken care of that it just stuck with me.
So you're watching, you're covering events, and you're seeing how important it is to be working with the comfort and knowledge that your child is being well taken care of. It probably helped you be more productive and perhaps more creative. As you've started to dig into what is the industry norm, is that normal that if you're working on the mountain, you can expect to have quality daycare right in the base area?
I would say it's not normal. And I would say the challenge is that it's really difficult to figure out whether it's an option. It's not as straightforward. You go to a ski resort website and it's very clear how to sign up for lessons or buy a lift ticket, but the childcare options are buried, and I couldn't figure it out. And yeah, so no, it's not straightforward, and it's not regularly offered at all.
And so tell us, so did your article, tell us more about what your article covered and how you went about doing all that research? Because to your point, not easy to just, Google and this stuff surfaces.
Yeah, so it was a couple resorts caught my eye, and it was to be fair, it was post-COVID. A lot of things happened. And childcare and, even children's ski lessons were some of the last things to come online after COVID. So there was a lot of variables there, but I saw that Vail Small World shut down. I was paying attention to Jackson Hole. They closed their daycare. Bridger Bull, one of my home resorts, a nonprofit ski area, shut down their daycare, which was a really odd one to me because that's a community ski area. And I was just like, what is happening? And I started to look into it a little more. I created a spreadsheet, tried to figure out if there was a trend. And honestly, I couldn't find a trend, but the process of looking into it was really interesting because it just revealed how, scattershot it is. There's no trend. There's no guarantee that there's childcare. It's really difficult to figure out whether there is. And so I pitched Dave Meeker at SAM on it, and he responded immediately saying how him and his wife had used the Mountain Snow daycare while they were working there and how massive that was. And they had just covered daycare at ski areas as an employee benefit, but they hadn't really looked into it from a consumer point of view. So that was the angle of my article.
And I think that's an important thing to mention, that daycare not only benefits someone like you who's coming in to ski, it's really an important factor into retaining talent on the mountain. If we don't have quality childcare as families, they start moving up. Maybe they're seasonal in their 20s and teens, and then they decide they want to make this a career, and they perhaps start a family, and then we lose them, or we lose one of them, perhaps in the family, if it's, two people who met at the mountain. And how are we expecting them to find quality childcare? Of course, housing is another issue that we've been talking about, but the childcare is huge. And just, I know when like Steamboat put money into that new childcare, how appreciative the employees were. And I don't know if they've done the study yet, but employee retention has to be a huge benefit of investing in these childcare centers. Have you found any of that to be the case?
Yeah, I didn't look specifically into that, but I did see a massive trend of resorts totally focusing on moving in some instances, including I believe at Steamboat, the childcare for the general public or for the visitors was turned into just childcare for employees. And that happened at a lot of different ski areas. I think that might be the case at Jackson Hole. It was really, I couldn't get a straight answer there. But so a big movement to prioritize employee childcare over guest childcare in some instances. And then right here in Oregon, I didn't see that. There's kind of childcare for everyone in Oregon and Idaho, two areas that I just saw this like major increase in childcare. A couple of the Oregon ski areas here, Mount Bachelor and Mount Hood Meadows, have year-round childcare. So they've turned their childcare centers at Mount Hood Meadows into almost like a community daycare, preschool type situation with year-round offerings, and same at Mount Bachelor. And then Idaho, I am so interested in what's going on at Idaho at Brundage and Tamarack. They just have these amazing new on-snow daycare centers. And I had a chance to go to Brundage and see their daycare center. And it's just so cute. And it's the same setup that they had at the Small World Daycare at Vail, where it was just, you go into the lodge, you warm up, you walk right past the daycare center. It's about 30 feet from the lift that you load. And it's just what awesome amenity for guests and for, locals to be able to put their babies and young kids in a daycare and take them out for a run and put them back, or, whatever you need.
But I agree with you. Every website is a journey when you're trying to find this information. And as a parent, we're trying to get the lessons lined up, and we've got to get the lift tickets, and we've got to get the lodging. And it's just one more thing that's like, I don't know if this is worth it. Maybe there's another vacation that's just easier.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because I was trying to remember as we were setting up for this podcast, I think it was Ski Magazine that, you get the best family resorts, and their best family resort was a couple resorts. There was 8 of them. And I would say like half of them didn't have any childcare. And I think back to when I, did the resort guide for Transworld. And of course, I was in my 20s and I wasn't thinking about childcare. And we would do the same thing. And I think that's something I would love to see, is that, if you're going to call something a family-friendly ski area, it has to have childcare for guests. I just can't imagine how that works. Well, I do know how it works out, because some ski areas who aren't able to provide childcare, like Timberline Lodge, they have a family pass. They acknowledge that they don't have the facilities. They're at the top of the mountain. So they've introduced this family pass where a parent can share the pass. So acknowledging that the solution is that someone's going to have to sit in the lodge with a baby or the toddler. And so that's a solution that they've come up with. But I just think that I would challenge editors at different ski magazines and snowboard magazines to take into account childcare when they're putting together these family-friendly resort listings, because that's just the reality of it.
When you've spoken to some of these resorts and gone in and either found they have or do not have childcare, did you find that there were themes around that, whether they are saying it's just too expensive or it's an insurance thing? Like, were there certain themes that were blocking them from having this offering of childcare on the mountain?
Yeah, I think there were general themes that were pretty consistent about the ratio of caregiver to child is really high for infants. And so employee retention was an issue, or having enough employees to, it's especially, there's like childcare for that 4+, but it's the 1 through 3 that there's just not enough childcare for. And that's the one where you have the higher ratio of caretaker to especially infants. I think it's a 2-to-1 ratio, which varies state by state. I think insurance is an issue. I think, what were some of the other issues? I think in Bridger Bowles' case, they just didn't have enough space, and they just decided to allocate that space to something more pressing. And also they said that the usage wasn't where they needed it to be to, I think they were getting 5 or 6 kids a day, which they couldn't justify. Yeah, it was just an array of issues, and yeah, nothing that you could really totally pin down, but yeah, employees was a big one.
When you think about, the journey of a single mom or a single dad trying to get a kid of the multiple ages out to the mountain, they need to be aware of that also, that it's just not always capable. We're not always capable of doing that swap. And I was thinking about Middlebury Snow Bowl has a beautiful toddler room, kind of like a co-op room where people bring books and toys. But you need 2 parents to do that. Or a grandparent to be able to sit in that room with the younger one. And I think the more that we talk about, that families come in all shapes and sizes, the family of 5 with 2 parents who are available for skiing is really probably the exception, not the rule when you're talking about families in North America. Hey, ski moms, are you ready to take what we talk about here on the podcast to the mountain? We're thrilled to launch our 2026 Ski Moms events, and you're invited. From Maine to Vermont, and even a special Nordic skiing day at the Von Trapp Family Lodge, these gatherings are designed for women who love snow and want a weekend or a day that's all about connection, movement, and mountain magic. Each event includes special Ski Mom programming and plenty of time on snow. You'll meet other amazing women, get expert tips, and have space to connect with our community in real life. Spots are limited, but we do have space at all 4 events. See the full lineup and save your spot at theskimoms.co/events. We can't wait to ski with you.
So you've got the infants who literally cannot go skiing or snowboarding. Then you have the toddlers who, and even up to, a certain age, especially here in the Northwest where the conditions can be really challenging. 2 or 2 hours of skiing or snowboarding is a lot for a little kid. And then having the ability to do those split lessons where they go out for 2 or 3 hours and then go back inside and play in the nursery or the daycare center. I think that's really realistic too. I love those programs where they're starting to ski, but it's like these kids are not going to go out on the mountain for the whole day. And so I've loved seeing those options too. And you can't do that without a daycare center. Even my son, who's 9 now, still can't pull a full day at Mount Bachelor in Mount Bachelor conditions that we have sometimes in the winter.
And what are some things that we can do as parents to advocate as ski moms to make our voices heard? Do you think the industry cares? Or are there ways that we can vote or let them know that this is something that is important to us?
I think just, resort by resort, just let the people at the resort know, if you're a season pass holder and you don't know if you can justify buying a season pass next year, knowing that you're going to have, a young child at home, just let them know what your needs are and advocate for your family. Also, if you're looking at going to a destination resort, email them. If you're not finding the information you need, email them, let them know you can't find it on the website, you're confused, you're definitely not alone in your confusion. And let them know that if you do decide not to go to the resort because there is no childcare, let them know that that was a deciding factor. I think that's important because otherwise they just won't know that that's something that's missing. Or if you do have a terrible experience at a resort because you weren't able to get on the snow because the amenity wasn't there, then let them know. Yeah, I think it's a resort by resort, really.
One of the other things that you have been writing about that we are very excited to talk to you about is Olympic fever. Sarah and I have it. We are always watching the World Cup races and we love the World Cup season, but Olympics is a whole nother level. We only get this every 4 years. What have you been working on around the Olympics?
Well, this is my second Olympics. Well, my second Olympics working for the Olympic broadcast services. So actually working for the Olympics. This will be my 5th Winter Olympics. It started in Italy. We're going back to Italy. So I cover all the sports. I cover all the qualifying. And this is really fun because, now I'm bringing some of this knowledge about motherhood, which was actually a really big topic at Paris this summer with Allison Felix, who's a track star, who's also a mother and has a really interesting movie that just came out documenting her struggles as a new mother and some of the challenges she had with her sponsors and some of the advocacy work she did that led to some great maternal benefits for athletes, which maybe Kimi Fasani spoke about because she's been continuing that work in snowboarding. But so the Paris Olympics had the first nursery for athletes and at those games. And I'm just kind of continuing that conversation in the Winter Olympics, just highlighting some of the moms who are competing. And these are, athletes that I've known since we were teenagers, like Jamie Anderson, who's competing she's just had a baby. She has maybe a 2-year-old. I'm not really sure. So I was just putting together a list yesterday that I think I sent to you that is just a laundry list of athletes who are moms who are at the top of their, performance career, competing to go to the Winter Games and bring their little babies with them. And it's just so cool. And so that's what I'm covering right now. But in addition to that, I'm covering, the top tier half pipe competitions. And I'll be in Livigno to cover standing at the bottom of the slopestyle and half pipe course, covering free skiing and snowboarding. So I'm really looking forward to that.
How will they be handling the childcare for the Winter Olympics since it's spread out between so many different venues?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking about that because it really isn't as centralized as Paris was with all the venues right there in the heart of Paris. So Livigno is about 4 hours from Milan. I think if I wanted to go from Livigno over to the men's race course, it's a 9-hour drive. So it's very decentralized. So I actually haven't had a chance to look into whether there is childcare. I know that most of these women are traveling with their partners. They're finding their own solutions, which is what we have to do a lot of times. So I'm just starting to research that article, but I will share the link when I have it completed and we find out what their problem-solving solutions are, because really, it's a lot.
And what do you do for your own childcare? Now you have a son he's at school age. How do you cover that?
Yeah, so my husband does travel a lot in the winter. I am usually the default parent. So when I do, I'm a little bit more, and he's chasing snow with pro snowboarders, trying to run up to Whistler when it snows. So he is just on a different schedule. And so I know my schedule. I will fly my mom out from Montana sometimes to help out. Our father-in-law lives here in Bend, so he helps out too a lot. He's a great grandpa. So we rely on family mostly, almost entirely probably. Yeah, but just a lot of planning ahead.
This is very reminiscent of Kimmy's story, as her husband was he was taking the lead on most of his travel. And as we were watching her documentary, Butterfly in a Blizzard, and, we saw her hopes and dreams kind of having to take a bit of a backseat. It was pretty heartbreaking for Sarah and I to watch because she's this incredibly talented and trained athlete. And she figured it out, but it definitely, you can't have two careers where they're chasing snow. It's seemingly impossible unless you have, a stable of grandparents who are willing to fly
Right?
in.
Yeah, it's the grandparents that we're relying on for sure. I'm trying to think if I've brought him to resorts since the U.S. Open stopped. But no, I don't think so. Because it always seemed like, in theory, it seems like it would be so fun. I'm working with Sean White on his new snow league, and we had that in Aspen. And I was like, I'll bring him. It'll be awesome. He knows a lot of these athletes now. But the reality is it's long days, and it's like just another major unknown. So I haven't been bringing him. We did just bring him out to New York for my husband's premiere. And it was really fun, but it was it was a lot to have a kid along with like adult dinners and all that stuff. So yeah, I would not recommend, but I'm glad we brought him because it was fun to bring him to New York and see what his dad has been working on the last couple of years.
With the Olympic coverage, are you using your own social media to cover it, or are you just using the Olympic broadcast services? What are your expectations from day to day? Are you supposed to be live generating content, or are you submitting stories that then go live whenever they're ready to put them live?
I pitch every week. So I'll pitch articles every week. And then I also, as there's news happening, I will write a quick article and post it. So it's a combination. It all lives on Olympics.com. It's a lot of variety. It's been really fun. And it's been a great learning experience as far as covering a bunch of different sports and learning a lot about other athletes and also seeing, I was in such a silo with snowboarding and free skiing, and it's so cool to see how some of these stories carry over, and it's all the same themes. It's just been really fun to see outside of snowboarding and free skiing. Well, and skateboarding and surfing. So, all of our little action sports are now becoming sort of some of the headliners at the Olympics. So, summer and winter. So that's been fun to grow with our sports, I guess, is kind of what I've been doing.
So what's coming up for you for the Winter Olympic qualifiers that you'll be going to? Like, where are they and what disciplines?
I'm going to cover a few of them remote. There's big airs in China that's kick off the World Cup season. The U.S. has 3 Grand Prix, which are World Cups. There's Copper. It starts at Steamboat with a big air, and then it goes to Copper, and then it finishes in Aspen. Yeah, a lot of my coverage will be remote, but it's all, on NBC, and I can communicate with the PR staff at the resort if I need to get quotes. But a lot of what I do is remote, which I like because the last Winter Olympics, I worked with the U.S. ski and snowboard team, so I was running the show at all the Grand Prix, and it's a lot. It's a lot of travel. So I have so much respect for those athletes, and I wish Jamie Anderson the best traveling to all these different Grand Prix with her kids because it's going to be a lot. And so,
give me the timeline of when the team is locked. I don't know when these events are. I know the Olympics start around the 8th February. Is it unknown until sometime in January who's on the team and who's not?
I mean, it is about, let's see, I don't have the exact date in my head, but it's January, probably about 2 weeks before the Olympics that it's actually named. Yeah, and so you're supposed to get your family over there. And, some athletes have already met their quotas, like Red Gerard and Chloe Kim in snowboarding, and I think Alex Hall in skiing, and probably a few other skiers. But so, yeah, they kind of have an idea, are pretty confident, but the team is not officially announced until about 2 weeks before the Winter Olympics. So it does not leave a lot of room for planning.
We had Alice Merriweather on, and she was telling us how she found out she was made the Olympic team like via a text when she was on a flight going somewhere else only a few weeks before, and our jaws dropped because we just imagined this being something years in the making, not necessarily. I guess everyone's getting ready and hoping their number gets drawn, but we were like just very surprised that it's done on that timeline.
Yeah, I was too. And I always thought that, I've covered Olympics, snowboarding, and free skiing forever. And I always thought it was something specific to our sport. And I was like, why do they do this to us? And then I was like, oh, they do this to everybody. That's one of those universals that I've realized isn't just specific to snowboarding or free skiing.
So the swimmers are qualifying weeks before their competitions for the summer, and track and field, the same thing. There's some.
Oh my God, track and field. I covered the track and field trials ahead of Paris. They're in Eugene. It is the most it's beyond brutal how those qualifiers are. It's just one chance. They have to qualify to get to the trials. They have this one race. If they get tripped up, if they have a false start, that's it. And it's not far out from the Olympics either. And that was track and field.
So, are we really getting the best if that's the process? Suppose somebody's shoelace breaks, or, they're just, suppose it's a woman and she's like having a bad day on her period or something. Like, I don't know. That seems so arbitrary and awful that they're not given more time. I protest.
There was a lady, Athing Mu, who was one of the Nike athletes who was she runs in the, she's a middle distance runner, and she kind of got mixed up in the middle of this pack and kind of got tripped up, fell down, and didn't make it to Paris. And, I think these seasoned athletics journalists were just like, yep, that's how it goes. And I still haven't recovered from it. It's been, it was a couple years ago, and I was like, this is brutal, but that's just, but then at the same time, you look at the athletes that did qualify. Team USA did amazing at Paris in track and field. So It works. Is it perfect? I don't think so, but it works. And that's not how ski and snowboard qualifying is. It's a cumulative sort of process through all the Grand Prix and all the World Cups, and there's a lot more room for error than it was in track and field. But still, the timeline between getting the team placement and going to the Olympics is pretty short.
Well, Sarah and I are going. We don't know if we've qualified for any events yet, but we have our tickets to a number of events. We are so excited. What do we need to know? Like, what do we need to bring? What do we need to be on the lookout for? How do we curate this experience so it's incredible for us?
Gosh, I don't know. There's so much to see, right? Like, I want to see Jessie Diggins compete in cross country. I want to see Lindsey Vonn and Michaela Schifrin. And actually, the U.S. women's alpine team is phenomenal right now. I mean, I want to see them take it all the way to the podium. I would kind of choose women's alpine, women's cross country.
We got women's GS and women's slalom. Sarah made this her part-time job. Sarah, you tell
Yeah.
about the process.
Well, it's just the website to buy the tickets. It's just very Italian is all I can say. You're never quite sure you got the tickets, except for the money comes out.
Wow.
And I literally had to call Nicole at one point. She had to pull over because I had all my tickets. And then she had to panic buy one more GS ticket. So we were like buying like one ticket, two ticket. We need like, I guess, 6 to 7 tickets between us. So it was a real journey to just get those tickets, but we have them for the GS and the slalom.
That's the battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
you got to come over to Livigno and see the half pipe.
And the only ticket we could find, because the general seating never became available. I don't know if they just gave those to the Italians, which bless if they did. Italy deserves something for putting this on. But we have the one with Prosecco and Italian pastry included mid-mountain. So, the ski moms may be getting a little tipsy. The coverage could be going off-piste depending on how early we get there.
Well, that sounds like great Olympic coverage. I think that's the spirit of the Olympics, right? A lot of après-ski, a lot of Prosecco, a lot of... Yeah, I don't know what the official après-ski drink of the Olympics is going to be, but I know we're talking a lot about pasta internally at the Olympics. So there's a lot of pasta coverage happening. So,
Sarah, I did have an idea.
yeah.
You know how pins are a big thing at the Olympics? Like, we should bring ski mom pins over because they could be the hot commodity of trading. And I'll chase down like the athletes and I'll be like, you want a ski pin? You want a ski mom pin?
You do need pins because you need a place to start your trading. Yeah, you actually do need to do that. So I don't know if you get something designed.
Collector's item. I know I can't use the Olympic rings. I probably can't even say that on this podcast without them coming for me. The Olympic Federation, they are deadly serious about where those rings are used.
Accurate.
And how.
Yes.
Okay, so when you're writing, do you have your laptop there? Are you recording into your phone? How are you capturing all the little details? Because it's cold. It's not like there's a desk set up at the side of the mountain.
It's cold. Yeah. Beijing has set the bar for cold, so I'm not scared anymore. It was very cold in Beijing. I had like boot warmers stuck to my phone. I mean, I'm doing everything I normally do. It's a lot more regimented and controlled. There's a lot of prioritizing different media. It kind of starts with rights holders and video, and then eventually the athletes travel through this entire maze and get to print media where we just are in a scrum and we get our quotes. It's all very controlled and all very, very organized. And then we have a media center right at the bottom. A lot of media doesn't even go out on the snow. They can sit in there and you get your printout of the tricks, you get your printout of the results, you get a printout of actual quotes from the athletes, or, that's all online now. So you can cover the Olympics at the Olympics without standing outside. But I prefer to run out there, see it for myself, and then run back inside and cover it all. But it's fun. It's like a very fun experience. It's exhausting. It's long days. It's a little bit cold, but that's okay. I'm used to it. I'm a professional outdoor spectator, so I've got tricks.
Well, we definitely want to follow along with all of your coverage for this. So where are we looking for this Olympic broadcast content exactly?
It's all on Olympics.com. So you go to that website and, or you can actually download the app is kind of the easier way. And just go under news, and that's where it's all living at. And then I share some on my Instagram, probably like some behind the scenes in my stories. And my Instagram is just Annie Fast. So
That's a good skiing Instagram name, A.
thank you. I did race board across.
Will you bring your board with you? Will you try to get in some turns while you're in Italy?
For sure, yeah. I've already done some research. There's going to be some open runs, and even in Beijing, which was we weren't supposed to snowboard really. I got powder turns in Beijing, so I am definitely bringing my snowboard. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
And will anyone else in your family be there with you?
That's another one of those things. I was like, this will be awesome. We'll bring my son, and lodging is challenging, and it's long days, and I would love for them to come, and also tickets. That's really hard to figure out too. So no, they won't be. No, we'll go. Maybe we'll bring them to France for the next Olympics. But yeah, this one, Lavinia is a really small town, and I think it's going to be a little bit challenging for people to find lodging and get around. So not ideal.
We always wrap with some après ski vibes, après snowboarding as well. So let's say you've filed your last assignment, you've maybe gotten in one run. What are you going to be eating and drinking to kind of celebrate the wrap of a great, successful a day at the Olympics?
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully I'll be eating a giant bowl of pasta, but I know that in Livigno, it's a little bit more of like Swiss food. So it's kind of a little bit Swiss German. So maybe it'll be something more like a gnocchi or something like that, and a glass of wine. It's fun because the people who are there from the industry, I know a lot of the agents and, their family, the athletes' families. So maybe I'll run into the Gerard family there, which runs about, a dozen deep with their whole family, Red Gerard's family. Or I think that's the fun thing about it is you just go out and you just see everybody. So hopefully I just run into the whole crew at some restaurant and celebrate and forget how much work I just put in that day and get to celebrate some of their medal moments together with them.
Annie, thank you. This has been so much. We've covered so many of our favorite things in this podcast, and I hope Sarah and I run into you. That sounds like we're going to be on the other side of the mountains, but we will. We would love to have you back, and we can talk about your post-Olympics experience, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to share more about how that went. Yeah. And thanks for having me on. And I'll be sure to stay in touch as I find out more about like how these female athletes are going to, manage their families while trying to reach the peak of their careers. So I'm excited to see how that works out. And I'm pretty confident they'll have it figured out.
Hey, Ski Moms, we hope you enjoyed today's episode and got some great tips for your next family ski adventure. If you had as much fun listening as we did making this episode, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on our latest episodes. And don't forget to rate and review us. Your feedback helps us bring you more of the content you love and helps other ski moms find our podcast. Plus, we love hearing from you. So whether you're on the slopes or just dreaming of your next snowy getaway, stay connected with us. Follow us on social media, share your favorite episodes with your friends, and let's keep this awesome community growing. Planning your next mountain holiday? Skip the crowded platforms and check out Ski Mom Family Rentals, a trusted space to find family-friendly homes in ski towns across North America. And if you're a homeowner, it's a smart way to get your property in front of like-minded ski families without the big fees. Whether you're booking your next getaway or want more visibility and bookings for your home, visit skimomfamilyrentals.com and make your mountain time matter.